Some memories never fade. They have fur, bright eyes, and the gift of loving us without saying a word. Because every dog carries a story, and maybe a part of yours. Get ready to discover more than a breed. Discover a lifelong companion.
Do you remember your childhood at Grandma's house, when everything seemed calmer, simpler, and more filled with affection? It was common to find a small, long-haired dog lying beside the armchair, bright and curious eyes following every movement of the family. Many of these memories involve a Shih Tzu, not just as a pet but as an emotional link between generations. This small dog, with its noble appearance and affectionate manner, seemed to understand every emotion that hovered in the environment. Silent when necessary, playful when requested. For many, it was the first childhood friend, the guardian of tears in adolescence, and the faithful companion of adult life. But what is so special about this breed? The Shih Tzu carries with it centuries of history. Created to be a companion to Chinese nobility, it never had any other function than to love and be loved. And perhaps that's why it has been shaped by history as a dog that doesn't demand great feats, but whose presence is transformative within the home. With its rounded eyes, drooping ears, and silky coat, it captivates at first sight. But the true beauty of the Shih Tzu goes beyond appearance. It lies in the way it connects with humans, offering affection without invading space, and demonstrating joy with simple gestures like a look or a touch of paws. Over the years, the Shih Tzu has come to be considered by many as the ideal dog for indoor environments, especially apartments. But those who think its nature is passive are mistaken. Behind the calm gaze, there is a curious, stubborn, and surprisingly intelligent spirit, which only reveals itself to those who truly observe. If you've ever had a Shih Tzu at home, you know what we're talking about. It's the type of dog that chooses a corner of the house to observe the world, but at the same time is always ready to approach when it senses you need it. A true emotional sensor in dog form. But why is this little being so good at capturing what we feel? There is something in the Shih Tzu's personality that makes it one of the most emotionally connected dogs with their owners. And this connection is not a coincidence of nature. It's in the breed's DNA and also in the way it was created and shaped throughout history. Behind its delicate gaze and ornamental coat, there is a complex emotional structure that makes it not just a companion dog, but a reflection of the emotions of the home where it lives. And that's exactly what makes it so special for the elderly, children, lonely people, or those in emotional recovery. Now imagine that all this is just the surface. The Shih Tzu, with all its charm, also holds silent challenges that few know about. Specific care requirements, surprising behaviors, and characteristics that, if misunderstood, can cause frustration in unsuspecting owners. What lies behind the Shih Tzu's docile gaze? What secrets does this ancient breed still hold? And is the Shih Tzu, despite all its fame, really the ideal dog for everyone? The charming appearance of the Shih Tzu can easily deceive us. Behind that flat snout and expressive eyes, there exists a breed with behavioral nuances that require understanding and, above all, patience. Those who see the Shih Tzu quiet, lying on the couch, might not imagine that this little dog can be, at the same time, affectionate and obstinate, calm and challenging. The first truth that few speak about this breed is its strong personality. Yes, it's small. Yes, it's a companion breed. But that doesn't make it passive or submissive. The Shih Tzu has its own will and often decides for itself what it wants to do, ignoring commands if not properly trained. This trait of stubbornness is not a defect, but part of its identity. Originally created to please emperors, the Shih Tzu has always been treated with reverence. That's why many carry an almost regal behavior, demanding attention and expecting affection when they want it, not necessarily when you want to give it. This relationship of emotional exchange requires a sensitive owner who knows how to set limits with affection and consistency. Another point that deserves attention is the breed's level of emotional dependency. The Shih Tzu doesn't handle long periods of solitude well. Its sensitive heart feels every absence, and this need can transform into separation anxiety, constant barking, or even destructive behaviors. Many people are surprised to discover that the calm little dog can actually carry a restless heart. Additionally, the Shih Tzu can demonstrate territorial behaviors, especially if not socialized from an early age. Barking at visitors, possessiveness with toys, and even jealousy of other animals are common in dogs that haven't been taught to share space and affection. These behaviors don't arise from nowhere. They are shaped by the experiences the dog has from puppyhood. And if you're thinking of getting a Shih Tzu just for its appearance, it's important to know. This breed requires time and dedication. Its coat, for example, needs daily care. Its eyes, due to the shape of the snout, demand constant attention to avoid injuries. And its breathing, often noisy, can be a sign of respiratory difficulties typical of brachycephalic breeds. Therefore, more than a lapdog, the Shih Tzu is a companion that requires involvement. It adapts perfectly to apartments, but that doesn't mean it can be ignored or treated as decoration. The Shih Tzu wants to participate, feel useful, be part of the family, and when it feels integrated, it reciprocates with pure affection and absolute loyalty. Those who understand its essence reap a silent but deep love. The Shih Tzu isn't flashy, doesn't need to call attention all the time, but it will always be nearby, following your steps, with that look that seems to say, "I'm with you." That alone is a rare gift these days. Understanding the Shih Tzu is diving into a world where affection is subtle but genuine, where external beauty hides a rich and fascinating emotional complexity. But are everyone prepared to deal with these layers of sensitivity? Could it be that deep down, the Shih Tzu is a mirror of the emotions of those who raise it? If you already live with a Shih Tzu, you may have identified with many of these points. Share your experience with us in the comments. Your story can help other owners better understand this special breed. And if you're considering getting a Shih Tzu, subscribe to the channel to continue learning everything about this true canine jewel in the next parts of this video. Those who learn to read the Shih Tzu's emotional signals soon realize that its sensitivity isn't just in its expressive eyes, but in its entire posture. The way it approaches slowly, how it touches with its little paw or retreats in the face of a firmer tone of voice, reveals a nature that responds more to affection than to imposition. That's why the way the owner deals with discipline makes all the difference. The Shih Tzu doesn't respond well to dry commands or aggressive training methods. It needs firmness, yes, but always allied with empathy. The tone of voice, the look, and even hand gestures are interpreted with almost surgical precision by this dog. In other words, emotional communication is the key. It's common for first-time owners to get frustrated by not being able to teach the Shih Tzu as quickly as other breeds learn. But the error isn't in its intelligence, but in the way of connecting. This breed requires continuous emotional involvement, and therefore whoever raises a Shih Tzu is, in fact, educating themselves as well. Another point often ignored is the importance of routine. The Shih Tzu needs predictability. Well-defined times for eating, walking, and resting help reduce anxiety and create a safe environment for it. When this structure fails, the dog may demonstrate behaviors that many confuse with tantrums, when in reality, they are emotional responses to environmental chaos. Its emotional intelligence can also generate unusual behaviors. Some dogs develop peculiar habits to get attention, dragging toys to your room, sighing loudly when ignored, or even sitting at room doors until you notice them. These small gestures, often interpreted as cuteness, are also subtle requests for connection. Additionally, the Shih Tzu has a sharp, effective memory. It remembers who treats it with kindness and also who ignores it. Upon perceiving the absence of a bond, it can become distant, apathetic, or even indifferent. That's why it's not enough to feed it well and take it to the vet. You need to be emotionally present, and when there is a bond, it flourishes. The Shih Tzu is the type that remains by your side in silence when you're sad. It doesn't demand play, just company. And this ability to offer presence without invading space is one of the most valuable gifts of this breed. It's as if saying, without words, "I'm here," and that's enough. However, it's at this deep level of connection that the greatest challenges also arise. The Shih Tzu's emotional hypersensitivity makes it more susceptible to domestic stress. Sudden changes, frequent fights, or tense environments can affect its health and behavior. It absorbs what's around it, like a silent sponge. Therefore, the true challenge of having a Shih Tzu goes beyond physical care. It requires you to take care of your own emotional environment, to be willing to grow as a person, to provide it with stable and safe coexistence. And that's exactly what makes the journey with this breed so transformative. In the next part, we'll dive into a fundamental point: how the Shih Tzu expresses love, and what signs you can learn to decipher to build an even stronger bond with it. Because yes, there are silent and surprising ways it says "I love you" every day. Understanding the Shih Tzu's signs of affection is diving into a silent language, yet full of meaning. As we mentioned earlier, it expresses love in discreet ways that often go unnoticed by less attentive eyes. It's not exaggerated in its demonstrations, but makes itself present with simple and constant gestures. For example, a Shih Tzu that rests near your feet without making a sound is saying, "I trust you." When it brings a toy to you and just places it beside you without forcing play, it's an offering, a kind of symbolic gift, a canine bonding ritual. Each of these behaviors is a small proof of affection. And there's also the famous prolonged gaze, firm eye contact without fear that transmits security and surrender. Animal behavior experts recognize this gesture as one of the purest forms of love between dogs and humans. The Shih Tzu, when looking into your eyes, is speaking without words. "You are my reference in the world." However, this sensitivity also makes it more vulnerable to emotional wounds. Sudden changes in tone, frequent absence, or lack of attention may not generate immediate reactions, but are recorded in its effective memory. And it's at this point that many owners fail, by confusing independence with coldness. The Shih Tzu needs constancy, not intensity. It doesn't demand big parties when you come home, but notices if you pass by without a gesture of recognition. It's in these small daily details that it measures the quality of the bond. A light caress when passing by, a soft word, an attentive look, that's love for it. And when it doesn't feel valued, the Shih Tzu can withdraw. It stays silent, but not at peace. It becomes introspective, a distant observer. Many owners only realize too late that the dog is emotionally disconnected. It doesn't bark, doesn't complain, it just moves away. A delicate way of saying, "I've lost you." To prevent this from happening, it's essential to develop active listening, even if silent. Pay attention to your dog's daily behavior, notice small mood changes, respect its rest moments, and also propose moments of real exchange. This construction takes time, but it's deeply rewarding. The good news is that at the slightest sign of reconnection, the Shih Tzu blooms again. It doesn't hold grudges. Just a few days of conscious affection, true presence, and it trusts again, surrenders again. It's as if saying, "I was waiting for you." Few breeds demonstrate this capacity for emotional renewal like the Shih Tzu. And that's precisely why it's so special. In a rushed world where bonds become shallow and affection is measured by appearances, the Shih Tzu invites us to love with delicacy, presence, and constancy. It teaches us that love doesn't need to be loud to be deep. If you also believe that true love is in the details of everyday life, continue with us on this journey. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to discover, in the next part, how the Shih Tzu's emotional and physical health are deeply connected, and how you can offer it a full, balanced, and meaningful life. Understanding the Shih Tzu's emotional delicacy naturally leads us to another fundamental aspect: its health. Not just visible physical health, but also the direct reflection that emotional state has on the well-being of its body. This is where attentive owners make all the difference, because with the Shih Tzu, body and soul walk together. One of the most revealing signs of this link between emotion and health is appetite. When the Shih Tzu is happy and well-adjusted, it eats with pleasure at regular times. But any emotional deviation, a change in routine, a more severe tone of voice, or even a prolonged absence from the owner, can make it simply refuse food. Not out of stubbornness, but due to emotional disturbance. Additionally, the Shih Tzu's immune system can be affected by chronic stress. Hair loss out of season, recurring itching, and even intestinal changes, such as softer stools or with mucus, are physical manifestations that often have emotional origins. That's why, more than medicine, it needs stability, predictability, and constant affection. It's common to hear stories of dogs of this breed that suddenly fell ill after moving houses or losing an owner. In these situations, the Shih Tzu enters mourning, and mourning in dogs is no different from ours. It closes itself off, loses the sparkle in its eyes, and often develops opportunistic diseases that take advantage of decreased immunity. Therefore, raising a Shih Tzu requires an approach that goes beyond routine care. You need to observe details carefully. Is it sleeping more than usual? Is it less interested in toys? Has it changed the way it interacts with household members? All of this can be silent signs that something isn't right. Another often neglected point is the eyes. Large and expressive, the Shih Tzu's eyes are fragile and sensitive. They tear easily, accumulate secretion, and can easily suffer injuries. But more than that, they are the mirror of this dog's soul. Sadness, tiredness, and joy manifest there with moving clarity. The owner who wants to offer quality of life to their Shih Tzu needs to care daily for the eyes, ears, skin, and heart, emotionally and physiologically. And this care, when done with tenderness and regularity, not only strengthens the bond, but also prolongs the dog's life and emotional health. In return, when the Shih Tzu feels cared for and understood, it transforms. It becomes more active, more playful, and its expression changes. It begins to anticipate good moments, creates positive expectations, and transforms the house into a home. Few dogs reciprocate with such delicacy what they receive in care. This reciprocity creates a rare relationship of trust, and that's exactly why so many owners say that, by caring for a Shih Tzu, they began to take better care of themselves. There's something about this breed that calls us inward, invites us to be kinder, more attentive, more human. In the next part, we'll dive into a topic that's still little discussed, but essential: the influence of the domestic environment on the Shih Tzu's behavior and balance. Get ready to discover how small changes in your home can profoundly transform your companion's life. When we talk about emotional and physical health, it's impossible not to think about the role of the environment where the Shih Tzu lives. This breed, more than many others, absorbs the energies and rhythms of the house it's in. And that's why every detail of domestic routine can directly influence its behavior and well-being. A noisy environment with constant shouting or abrupt movements can generate a permanent state of alert in the Shih Tzu. It doesn't demonstrate this explosively, but its body responds with tension, fragmented sleep, and even anxiety episodes. Homes where stress has become part of daily life tend to generate more reactive and less sociable dogs. On the other hand, in homes where there's tranquility, predictability, and respect for the dog's space, the Shih Tzu flourishes. It feels safe to explore, play, rest, observe. The absence of emotional threats in the environment allows it to express its true essence: affectionate, calm, and extremely loving. It's interesting to note how this breed chooses its favorite corners of the house with almost symbolic precision. Many Shih Tzus adopt strategic locations to observe family movement, as if they wanted to participate in the routine even without being called. Others prefer high places, like the back of a sofa, to watch and rest at the same time. These choices aren't random. They reflect the level of security and control the dog feels over the space. A Shih Tzu that constantly changes sleeping places may be seeking emotional balance or trying to escape stimuli that bother it. Therefore, observing its rest patterns is a silent way to understand its needs. Beyond the physical environment, the emotional environment is even more determinant. Calm conversations, soft music, and even natural light filtered through a thin curtain are stimuli that the Shih Tzu appreciates. It perceives the harmony of the home in layers that often go unnoticed by us. Another important factor is the predictability of care. Feeding at the same time, regular walks, and affection rituals build security. The constant breaking of this routine can trigger episodes of frustration and anxiety. For the Shih Tzu, peace lives in the gentle repetition of good moments, and when there's harmony in the home, it transforms. The gaze gains brightness, movements become smoother, breathing becomes calmer. It's as if every part of its anatomy enters synchrony with the environment's vibration. A balanced Shih Tzu transforms any house into a space of emotional refuge. Therefore, the owner who truly wants to care for their dog needs to look beyond food and toys. You need to look at yourself, at the energy cultivated at home, at the type of presence offered daily. The Shih Tzu doesn't demand luxury, but yearns for peace. We've talked about the impact of the physical and emotional environment on the Shih Tzu's life. But there's something even deeper, the way it absorbs and reflects family relationships. This little dog isn't just a member of the house. It transforms into a silent mirror of the home's affective dynamics. It's common to hear owners say their Shih Tzu seems to choose one person in the family as the main figure of affection. This choice isn't random. It's based on voice patterns, gestures, looks, and mainly on genuine emotional presence. The dog recognizes who's really available, not just physically but emotionally, and when this connection is established, a type of deep loyalty is born. The Shih Tzu begins to shape its schedules to those of the chosen person, to anticipate their steps, and even to intuit subtle mood changes. This connection can be comforting, but it also demands responsibility. The dog begins to intensely feel the ups and downs of this relationship. A stressed owner, for example, can provoke a restless Shih Tzu. An environment of constant arguments can generate a more withdrawn or even apathetic dog. On the other hand, harmonious relationships guided by respect and care create a dog that expresses security, joy, and serenity in daily life. Additionally, the Shih Tzu has a rare ability to promote silent reconciliations. There are countless reports of families who noticed how the dog tried to interpose itself between arguments, lie between people, or act comically at the most tense moments, as if its natural instinct was to restore peace. And that's exactly what it does. It creates invisible emotional bridges. With its constant presence, its silent sweetness, its compassionate gaze, the Shih Tzu invites us to slow down, to reflect, to touch more lightly the relationships we build every day. But it's also true that, when ignored or exposed to toxic relationships, this dog becomes sick inside. It loses its brightness, loses its appetite, loses the desire to play. Its sadness doesn't come in barks, it comes in absences. It disappears slowly within its own home. Therefore, more than teaching commands or routines, the greatest gift we can give the Shih Tzu is effective coherence, being present with the heart, listening with the eyes, caressing with intention. It doesn't need beautiful words, it needs constant affection. By understanding this silent language, many owners report transformations not just in the dog, but in themselves. They learn to observe more, react less, listen with more empathy. The Shih Tzu, with its gentle presence, teaches us to be more human. As we dive into this silent journey of the Shih Tzu as a mirror of human relationships, it becomes impossible to ignore one of its greatest vulnerabilities, the fear of loneliness. Although they may seem independent at certain moments, these dogs carry a deep need for continuous connection, not out of fragile dependency, but from a genuine instinct of belonging. The Shih Tzu isn't a dog made for long periods of isolation. Its sensitive nature makes it especially susceptible to silent loneliness. It's not uncommon for it to develop behaviors like excessively licking its paws, crying when left alone, or even losing interest in previously loved games. But not every owner notices these signs. In a fast-paced routine, it's easy to confuse silence with balance. The truth, however, is that the Shih Tzu needs presence, not just physical, but emotional. It wants to feel that it belongs, that it's noticed, that its existence has a role in the home's daily life. This is one of the reasons why many Shih Tzus develop such deep bonds with the elderly, children, or people who spend more time at home. They don't choose by age or energy, but by the compass of presence. Where there's gaze, touch, and true attention, there is the safe place. Unfortunately, not all owners understand this effective need. Some see the Shih Tzu as a docile ornament, beautiful, clean, discreet, but forget that. Behind the big eyes and soft coat, there exists a soul that feels deeply, and when this soul finds no echo, it slowly closes itself off. But there's hope. Even dogs that have gone through emotional neglect have a surprising capacity for effective regeneration. All it takes is time, patience, and repeated gestures of true affection. The Shih Tzu doesn't hold grudges, it holds memories. And with new memories, it builds new bridges. It's in this reconstruction process that many owners also heal themselves. Caring for a Shih Tzu is, in many cases, an invitation to one's own emotional reconciliation. It's relearning the value of touch, of silent listening, of the pause between words. It shows us that loving is being, without haste, without demands, just present. And perhaps that's the true power of this breed. It transforms us by the simple fact of existing with us. Without demanding, without forcing, just being what it is, a small master of affection and observation. In the next part, we'll conclude this journey with a final reflection: how the Shih Tzu can, over the years, become not just a pet, but an affective legacy in the life of an entire family. See you soon. As we advance on this silent and sensitive journey alongside the Shih Tzu, we realize that this breed goes far beyond what meets the eye. What seemed to be just a small companion dog reveals itself in truth as a presence that transforms environments and relationships, silently, day after day. And it's exactly in this silence that its power lies. The Shih Tzu doesn't impose its importance with loud barks or excessive energy. It marks its presence in the details, in the gaze that discreetly follows every step, in the light sigh when snuggling beside the owner, in the calm walk that follows the rhythm of the house. Over the years, many owners report that the Shih Tzu has become an essential part of their most effective memories. It's present on calm Sunday mornings, on afternoons when loneliness threatened to strike, on nights when just its warmth near the feet made everything seem lighter. They don't just grow inside the house, they grow inside us. And when, inevitably, the time for goodbye comes, this small being leaves a void that is proof of its greatness. Because the love it gives has no urgency, but has depth. It demands nothing in return but changes everything around it. That's why, when thinking about adopting or living with a Shih Tzu, it's important to go beyond aesthetics, cuteness, or practicality. Ask yourself, are you ready to live a silent, intense relationship full of meanings? Are you willing to be observed, understood, and welcomed by a being who, even without speaking, will understand more about you than many humans? Perhaps you're also living a moment of reunion with sensitivity, with lightness, and with forgotten affections. And who knows, the Shih Tzu might be exactly the missing link for this reconnection to happen. After all, it's more than a dog. It's a soul companion. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you also recognizes this need for true bonding. So take the opportunity to reflect. Is there space in your life for this type of silent but transformative love? If this video touched you in any way, consider sharing it with someone who also loves this charming breed. And if you want to follow other stories like this, feel free to subscribe. There's much more to be told and felt. Thank you for accompanying us this far. May the tenderness of the Shih Tzu go with you.